Mayoral Memo with Matho from Dubbo Regional Council.
.5 Triple M. I'm joined by the Mayor of Dubbo, Matthew Dickerson. Good morning. How are you, Mayor?
I'm very well, actually. It's always exciting to talk to you on Triple M, so thank you for having me on.
Oh, look, it's absolutely my pleasure. Now, you never thought a toilet could be controversial, but apparently there is a controversial toilet in Dubbo.
Well, it's more than just a toilet being controversial. Normally, I have lots of people ask me about when am I going to replace some piece of infrastructure, when we're going to build something new. And the toilet block over at the Macquarie Lions Park in West Dubbo is a very old toilet block. It had a big step in there. You couldn't get into it if you're in a wheelchair, for example. And I used to go in that toilet sometimes when it's out on Track O'Reilly, when I'd go for a run or a bike ride. And I'd walk in, I'd look up at the ceiling and there's steel beams there that have been there for decades that are a bit old and rusty. I think, is it going to fall down today on me? So it was due to be replaced. So we've knocked that down. We're building a new toilet block. Normally, happy days, council's doing a great job fixing up infrastructure. But the new toilet block we're building there is going to be 3D printed. We'll be the first council in the nation that will 3D print a new toilet block. And for some reason, people have got their nose out of joint about 3D printing a new toilet block. It's actually quite innovative. We've looked at the costings on it and we've looked at the time frame. It should be better from a cost perspective. It should be faster to build. So it all sounds good. It will look a little bit different because it's going to be 3D printed rather than an all brick construction or a prefab concrete construction. But I actually think that'll be quite good. I think there'll be media interested in actually watching the 3D printing of it. I even think after it's printed, people will visit Dubbo, and I don't think they'll visit Dubbo just to look at that toilet block, but when they're here, someone will say, you should go and look at that toilet block. It was 3D printed. That sounds interesting. Let's go and have a look. But I've received so many complaints about us knocking down the toilet block and putting up a new 3D printed toilet block. It's unbelievable.
Well, I did think I'd be living in the age of the Jetsons and we're 3D printing toilet blocks. It wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but that's okay. I'm sure you'll get through the controversy like you always do. Now, looking to Wheelers Lane, there's a work happening on that. It's going to be major work and it's going to be a bit of interruption.
It has been something that people have asked me about for some time, and obviously with all the wet weather we had towards the end of 2022, it was difficult to do a lot of work on our roads, but obviously we haven't had rain for a while. The roads are drying out. Underneath the roads, more importantly, is drying out. And so finally, this bit of work that we've been planning for some time now, we can actually start. So we've started this week. People will notice some interruptions there. It is a fairly large project. It's $1.774 million we're spending on this project between Birch Avenue and the railway line. There'll be some interruptions there. Sometimes it'll be reduced back to one lane. Sometimes we'll actually have detours in place. That's going to go from now through till about September, on and off. Again, it won't be blocked off completely that whole time, but there will be interruptions there. So apologies in advance. But again, one of the challenges we face is that everyone wants our roads to be perfect, but no one wants to have interruptions while roadworks are done. Unfortunately, you can't have the two. We'll do the best we can, but just be prepared for some interruptions around there before we get back to a beautiful surface that we need to have there.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking of construction, out the front of the jail there at Heritage Plaza, there's a little bit going on.
Yeah, there is. And I think this is a really exciting project. It has been going along, in my opinion, a little bit too long. You may remember that there was the old building at the front, which all got knocked down. In terms of preparing that surface to complete the Heritage Plaza, we had to be very careful because there was a suspicion there was something under the ground there that might have been heritage involved. So we didn't want to dig down too deep. And unfortunately, when the contractors were doing that work, they went down a little bit too deep and found there was some possible foundations there of something. So we had to stop any of the work there, get Heritage New South Wales involved. They said, yes, there definitely could possibly maybe be something under there. So we've now engaged a firm to come along and do a complete historic archaeological assessment there. They'll do some more archaeological research. It could be the walls or foundations of maybe an 1863 courthouse that was there. Maybe it was an 1896 perimeter wall of a jail or a trial yard. We don't really know what's there, which is why we've got to do this archaeological assessment. Once we do that, then Heritage New South Wales will look at it and they'll make a determination on what we've got to do depending on what they find there. It may, for example, mean we've got to dig down, expose what's there, and then cover it in perspex so people can see it, but you can walk over it without damaging it. Or maybe they'll say it's okay to cover it up, but you need to put interpretive signage there to tell people what's underneath the ground as they walk around. Something will happen there. We're working as fast as we can, but with heritage things, I find as fast as you can is normally very slow. So we'll get that finished, and eventually we'll have that open plaza there, which I think will really open up that area of the CBD, create a bit of vibrancy, and open up the whole front of the Oldabo Jail there.
You know, it's always good when there's something like an event on at the front there. It does spark a bit of interest there on Macquarie Street. Mayor Matthew Dickinson, thank you so much for joining me today. It is always appreciated.
My pleasure, and we'll talk again in a couple of weeks, Matho.
We will. Thank you, Matthew. I really appreciate it.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.